Well, good afternoon, and thank you for attending the 14th induction ceremony for the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame. I am humbled to serve as MC for this momentous annual celebration of AT giants who exemplify words like vision, fortitude, service, and stewardship. I'm Brooke Lenker, Executive Director of the Keystone Trails Association, and my AT experiences, no doubt, pall by comparison to all of you, and certainly to those of our honorees. But like many, I too was seduced early in my trek upon this planet by the call of the wilds, the peace of a mountaintop, the inspiration of a walk in the woods, and the allure of a trail that can take you away to dream, to explore, to really live. Our big kitchen window in West Hanover Township looked north at Blue Mountain, AKA the Kittatinny Ridge. It gazed upon the dip in the ridgeline known as Piketown and the interruption to the east known as Manada Gap. Those haunts were formerly graced by the AT and were formative to me. Plying the horseshoe trail with friends, escaping to rocky denizens, and discovering a monument to the Blue Mountain Eagle Climbing Club, it must have been intentional. Indirectly, those adventures brought me here today. Maybe that's a form of trail magic. I still have much hiking to do upon our beloved Appalachian Trail. Backpacking trips and day outings over the years have only given me a taste of the rambling feast that you have likely indulged in. I guess that is acceptable, though, for the AT is a trail for the benefit and enjoyment of the people, no matter one's level of familiarity, capability, or durability. In tribute to the magnanimous virtues of trails and hiking, Keystone Trails Association was formed in 1956. And in the beginning, KTA was a coalition of local clubs that maintained the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania. The clubs wanted to cooperate on projects like publishing an Appalachian Trail Guide and building a series of shelters on the trail. Growing statewide concerns for Pennsylvania's other long-distance trails expanded the focus of the organization, but decreased our more active role in the AT. Today, with a mission to preserve, promote, protect, and provide hiking trails and hiking opportunities in Pennsylvania, it is an exciting time for the association. We have grown the complement of staff, we've implemented new events and programs, and doubled down on vital trail care efforts. We are a portal for trail information, an ally to trail clubs, and an advocate on issues that impact trails or the hiking experience. Excuse me. We really value the synergies with major partners like the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and the National Park Service. A signature collaboration involving these entities and others will soon transform the Scott Farm in the Cumberland Valley into a multi-purpose trail center. The master planning process currently underway will steer improvements to the property, making it not only a new headquarters for KTA and a stellar maintenance hub and programming hub for AT partners, but it will also be a welcoming gateway to the Appalachian Trail, America's most fabled footpath. These aspirations and milestones rely on the power of people, their ingenuity, drive, and perpetual selflessness. People like Jim Foster here, who resurrected KTA's AT maintaining traditions and leads crews on a section of the trail near Lehigh Gap, despite living 90 miles away. Or Wayne Gross, KTA's president, who painstakingly shepherds the production of the periodic editions of the AT Guide for Pennsylvania. These and thousands of others make trails and the AT possible. Millions more relish those contributions with every step taken on a well-tended, well-marked route with ample amenities and helpful information for all. So the givers and give-backers are epitomized by the grand people that we honor today in this ceremony, and by several individuals who are out there in the audience, and I'd like to recognize them, or some of them at this time. So Ed Clark, Superintendent of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. Ed? And Lauren Imgrind, Lauren, who's the Associate Director of Partnerships and Civic Engagement for the National Park Service. I'd like to recognize Karen Lutz, a KTA board member and all things Appalachian Trail. And Julie Queen, the manager of the Appalachian Trail Museum, and also a KTA board member. And then I just like everyone who's part of a director of the museum to please stand. Are there any directors here today? Yes, I thought we did. And then how about members of the Hall of Fame that are present? Please stand. Any members of the Hall of Fame? Fantastic. Well, thank you for all being here today. But let's get on with the epic business at hand. It's my pleasure to introduce another giant in his own right, Larry Luxembourg. Larry is president and founder of the AT Museum and author of Walking the Appalachian Trail. Larry?
I've been called a lot of things over the years, but I think that's the first time I was referred to as a giant, and I kind of like that. You know, with everything related to the AT, volunteers play a key role. And Brooks had our board of directors for the museum stand up. But if I could also have the volunteers, past and present for the AT Museum, stand up. So it's really a tribute to all of their efforts, the things we've created over the years. And it's really amazing. You know, the museum is a relatively small building, and it's amazing how much work goes into it. And all of these people have done a tremendous amount over the years. I want to briefly mention a couple of our board members that we've lost this year. Ron Bungay, if you could stand. We didn't actually lose Ron. He's still here, and he's been threatening to retire for a long time, and I'm not sure he knows how. But this time he tells me he's serious. But anyway, over the years, Ron did as much as anybody to build the physical part of the museum. Years ago, our first manager, Margie Schmidt, asked Ron if he could help with a small built-in bookcase. And before you knew it, he was working on 4 floors of the museum and doing all kinds of stuff. A really amazing job, Ron. So thanks very much for your efforts over the years. And this summer, one of our longtime board members and contributors, Noel, the singing horseman, Decano Cavalcante, passed away. Noel was involved with the museum from the very beginning in 1998, and even as his health deteriorated, he wanted to remain part of the museum effort, and continued right up to his passing to be briefed on the museum and to contribute. And he was also the whole time a member of the Hall of Fame selection committee. And the other thing Noel was involved in, each year since Jim started the Hall of Fame, we've also given a Lifetime Achievement Award to somebody who was deserving for their achievements for the AT community, and oftentimes directly for the museum. And this year we want to honor John Bodacious. John, as you'll see here, has carved these beautiful walking sticks. They've become the symbol of the Hall of Fame. So each year we give one of these walking sticks to the honorees or their representatives. It's really amazing how much work John puts into each one of these sticks, from roaming the woods in Tennessee to find the right kind of sourwood for the sticks, curing the wood, hand carving, a beautiful job. His work has been highlighted in Fine Woodworking magazine, and over the years it's really been the symbol of the Hall of Fame. So just like for the Oscars or something, we have a little nickname for these awards. So we call these sticks the Bodies after John. So if John can come forward. So congratulations, John. It's really tremendous how much you've meant to the museum and the Hall of Fame over the years. So thanks very much.
That's good.
So thanks, Brooks. Back to you.
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to, I was remiss in recognizing one person. I just want to recognize Katie Barker back there. Katie was a former president of Keystone Trails Association and was there at a really pivotal time in the organization, and was really grateful for her counsel in my first year or so at KTA. So now we will proceed to the induction. And to make such pronouncements, I am pleased to turn the mic over to Jim Foster. And Jim is also, I know you already know a little bit about Jim and some of his generous hats that he wears, but he is also chair of the Hall of Fame Selection Committee, and of course, a heck of a great guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Foster. Jim, all yours.
Thanks, Brooke. My name is Jim Foster. It's my honor to be the chair of the Hall of Fame Committee, and I want to thank all of you for coming to this year's induction. Let me make a couple of announcements. Somebody who will remain nameless, but whose initials are Jim Foster, forgot about the brochures, the programs for the Hall of Fame, and they're in the back. Sorry they weren't there, but please get one on your way out. So get a program on your way out. Some of you may have already have a program. I am delighted that I was able to persuade Brooke Lenker to be the MC for this year's induction. It wasn't my idea. Actually, Cindy Dunn suggested Brooke. I don't even think Brooke knows that, but Cindy Dunn, if you don't know who Cindy Dunn is the Secretary of Pennsylvania DCNR. She says she sends her regrets for not being here. She says she hired Brooke, and then Brooke left twice, and she was a little mad about that, and not really. And she couldn't think higher of Brooke. Brooke is a lot of different things, which I didn't know about until I got to know him. He's kind of a Renaissance man. He's a published author. He's written 2 novels. His second novel is about to come out. Is that right, Brooke? Yeah. He's quite a guy. I want to mention again. You mentioned Katie. Katie's a good friend of mine, and Katie was instrumental in getting Brooke to KTA, and I have to say that Brooke's been at KTA for about 3 years, and he has totally revitalized KTA. KTA was doing okay before he came along. Now it's just making great strides, more than doubled its paid staff, just involved in all kinds of things. It's an amazing organization now. I'm proud to be a life member of KTA, and if any of you live near or around Pennsylvania and you're not a member of KTA, why in the heck not? You need to join KTA. One of the things that I do for KTA, hold on just a second, is I help to manage the section of the AT that we took over in 2016, which is up in the Lehigh Valley near Lehigh Gap. And hot off the presses is a shirt that we're coming out with, the Lehigh Gap Rock Scramble, which is right in the middle of our section. And it has the GPS coordinates, KTA's insignia, the A over T, and it's available for your purchase now from KTA. I was lucky enough to get the first one. So I think that's kind of cool. And all you AT hikers, you probably are going to want one. I would like to welcome my friend Ron Tipton, who is helping me give the awards out again this year. Ron thru-hiked the AT in 1978. He spent his career as an advocate for public land preservation, national park protection, and hiking trails. He became the CEO of ATC in 2013 and retired 5 years later. He's one of the founders of ALDA. I know there's several people very active in ALDA here. And he's an important member of our Hall of Fame committee. Before we get started with this induction, I want to remind you that soon we're going to be making plans for our 2025 Hall of Fame class. In December, we will open our site for nominations. We'll make a public announcement about nominations soon. Early in 2025, the committee will look at all the nominations we've received since the beginning, and then we'll select the class. That gives rise to a point. Not everybody understands that we retain all of the nominations we've received from the beginning. So there's no such thing as being nominated for a particular class. You're nominated for the Hall of Fame. But I do encourage folks to make additional nominations, even if you know somebody has been nominated, because that's one of the things we consider. You know, if 10 people have nominated somebody to the Hall of Fame, that is a factor that can tend to sway us. So please submit your nominations. They will be able to be submitted starting around December 1st. And then our Hall of Fame committee will begin deliberations, and we'll announce the 2025 class in the spring. We'll also announce a time and place for our 2025 induction sometime next year. As Larry mentioned, and I'm going to mention, we honor Noel. He was a member of our Hall of Fame committee since we began. His quiet and clear voice was an important part of our deliberations. We're really going to miss Noel. We are happy to celebrate another solid year of progress at the museum. Our museum manager, Julie Queen, who you met a little while ago, is just doing a great job, speaking of people who've revitalized things. We have new exhibits at the museum. If you haven't been to the museum in a while, you really need to go down there and take a look at it. Gwen Luce is also an integral part of our displays in the museum. And a new project that we've started is the Hiker Yearbook. The Hiker Yearbook was started by a friend of the museum, Odie, and Matthew Norman. Odie has moved on to other adventures, but we thought that the Hiker Yearbook was such a great idea that we've picked it up. It's now, information on the yearbook is available on our website, and you can also find it at hikeryearbook.com. Hope you'll also get a chance to take a look at the Iron Master's mansion. The museum took over operations of the Iron Master's hostel in 2020 under the wonderful leadership of our innkeeper, Missy Shank. We've continued and even enhanced its tradition as one of the best overnight experiences on the trail. Included within the Iron Masters is the Hall of Fame room. You see Lori Pottiger with her stick in the Hall of Fame room. We have plaques for the first 7 classes, with more coming soon. I just corresponded with the folks who build those for us, and they're going to be up soon. We have a permanent display of our Hall of Fame class sticks. We also have presentations regularly in the Iron Masters. Like we had this morning, we had interviews with the inductees and representatives and other folks. Please go to the Iron Masters as well while you're down in that area. We have a greatly enhanced website, which includes a virtual Hall of Fame, and as you can see, it's atmuseum.org. You can help us with our plans for the future, such as completing the Hall of Fame room, adding to our exhibits. Please consider making a generous contribution to the museum's building campaign if you have the financial resources to do so. This slide shows the criteria for the inclusion in the Hall of Fame. We deliberately make the criteria as broad as possible. If you boil it down, it's essentially people who have made a positive difference in the Appalachian Trail through their actions. And once again this year, we have a nice combination of pioneers who helped to establish the Appalachian Trail, along with some stalwarts who preserved and protected it in succeeding years. Our class includes 2 National Park Service employees who played vital roles in getting the trail built, a key volunteer both in the trail work in Tennessee and North Carolina and with the trail at large, plus a 50-year volunteer who has done important work mostly in New York State. And as you've already heard, they're going to get a custom-made hiking stick made by Bodacious. We're deeply grateful to the work Bodacious does for us. Bodacious lives in Tennessee. He was kind enough to come up today and receive our Lifetime Achievement Award. We're thrilled that he's with us today. Each honoree will also receive a certificate. You see the one that Bob Peoples got in 2018. And so let's go to the 2024 class. I'm going to announce the honorees in alphabetical order. Our first 2 inductees bear some similarities to each other. Those of us involved with maintaining the AT know that there are 2 important concepts in how the trail is laid out. One is that the AT runs within a strip of land from Georgia to Maine, known as the AT corridor. Another is that the AT is only possible because of a system of cooperative agreements among the land managers. The land managers include the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, 2 important national parks, and several state land management agencies. Here in Pennsylvania, for example, much of the trail is in Pennsylvania DCNR land and land of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. So the question arises, who came up with these important ideas? The answer, more than anyone else, is Edward B. Ballard. During the 1937 Appalachian Trail Conference, Ballard, who was a National Park Service field coordinator and Appalachian Mountain Club member, presented to delegates a resolution calling for pursuit of an Appalachian Trailway, which would be a buffer strip of land through which the trail and its surroundings would be protected on private and public lands alike for those who seek their recreation on foot. Ballard's good friend, Myron Avery, helped him develop this idea. Ballard's resolution became what we now know as the AT Corridor. According to Brian King's 2000 publication, Trail Years, their vision made the footpath itself preeminent and sought cooperation with government agencies to secure a belt of land that would protect the path. How is the concept of a trail corridor implemented? According to King, 14 months after the Ballard proposal, on October 15, 1938, the National Park Service and U.S. Forest Service executed an agreement to promote the trailway concept on the 875 miles of federal lands along the AT route, creating, as an example to others, a protective zone extending 1 mile on either side of the trail. Soon, most of the trail states signed similar cooperative trailway agreements with the Park Service. The PACs officially recognized the privately inspired trail and promised a share of public responsibility for its care. Until this point, the partnership between the AT Conference and public agencies had been informal. Over the coming decades, the cooperation would become truly formalized. Ballard later served in the Pacific during World War II, then as an official with several state park agencies, and finally as a prominent landscape architect. He passed away in 2000. We are delighted that Mr. Ballard's son, Bob Ballard, is here to accept the induction for his father, Mr. Ballard. Please come forward and say a few words. And I believe it's Tim. Why don't you come up too? Tim, his grandson, is here as well.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming and inducting my dad. Nobody warned me I would be asked to speak. I think, so my dad didn't meet my mom until he was in his 40s and had me shortly after. He didn't talk a lot about his life before that. He didn't talk about being part of the creation of the Appalachian Trail. I didn't really learn much of what you just heard until he was inducted into, or chosen to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Brian King filled me in. Brian apparently talked to my dad on the phone about his contributions while he was still alive. And so I've learned a lot fairly recently that I didn't know. But I think it explains something. When he lived to be 94. He was very active physically and mentally up until the last couple of months of his life. And he went in the hospital, and I sat with him a lot. And I asked him if he didn't want me to read to him when he couldn't really concentrate to read himself. And he said, yes, I'd really like that. So I thought, he'll want me to find some novel, something, engaging to my mind. And that wasn't what he asked for. What he asked for was the Appalachian Trail Reader that he had in his apartment, which had just been published a few years before that with essays about the trail. And so I brought that book, and that's all he wanted to hear as he lay in bed at the end of his life, which now that I know so many details of his contribution, I know why that was so important to him, and what a big thing that was for him to be part of the creation of the Appalachian Trail. So this is a special honor. Do you want to say anything? Okay. Special honor for both of us to be able to be here and accept on his behalf.
Yep. Ron has... We'll get them later, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Like Edward Ballard, Arno Cammerer is not a well-known figure within the trail community. He also spent much of his career in government service. Arno Cammerer has been described as the best friend the AT had in the federal government during its early days. Much of my information on Cammerer comes from a recent article in the magazine Smokey's Life written by Holly Kays. Born in 1883 to a Lutheran pastor in south central Nebraska, Cammerer was an unlucky candidate to become a history-making champion of national parks. Cammerer joined the National Park Service in 1919, just before Benton Mackay proposed the Appalachian Trail in his famous article. Cammerer and Avery began working together in the late 1920s when Myron Avery proposed a route for the trail through what became Shenandoah National Park. Later, when the Skyline Drive Road project would cover much of the trail in Shenandoah, Cammerer and Avery developed an alternate route for the trail. By the 1930s, Cammerer had been at the National Park Service for more than a decade and had recently become its director. Prior to becoming director, he worked with Myron Avery to lay out the route of the trail from Pennsylvania to Georgia. As director, Cammerer was instrumental in making the Smoky Mountains a national park. He secured funding from his good friend John D. Rockefeller Jr. to acquire land for the park, which secured the route of the Appalachian Trail through that area. When, in 1933, the Civilian Conservation Corps was created and began building Skyline Drive, Cammerer tasked the CCC with rebuilding the trail in places where the drive obliterated the original Avery routing. After the Blue Ridge Parkway's construction required the trail in that area to be rerouted, Cammerer directed the CCC to help with this work as well. When the administrators of Great Smoky Mountains National Park prohibited shelters on the AT within that park, Cammerer intervened and got them restored. A lot of us are grateful for that. Arno Cammerer died of a heart attack in 1941. In his honor, a mountain in the Smokies is named after him, Mount Cammerer. We feel we need to point out that Cammerer was a white man of his time living in Virginia. It appears that he had some views on race that most of us would not find acceptable today. He had to do his job walking a fine line between, on the one hand, many power leaders with doctrinaire racist views and the progressive positions of Franklin Roosevelt's administration and its Secretary of the Interior, Harold Ickes. Some of the choices he made were not those many of us would make today. However, it's our humble opinion that he should be judged by the times he lived in and not by today's standards. We honor Arno Cammerer for the tremendous work he did in helping to found the AT and protecting it from its early challenges. We've been unable to find a family member for Arno Cammerer to accept for him, and so accepting in place of that is our president and founder, Larry Luxembourg. Larry.
So just a word about Arno Cammerer and the National Park Service. We tend to forget today how ambitious a project the Appalachian Trail project was in the 20s and 30s, and it required so many unique public and private partnerships. But it was really critical in those early days that the directors of the Park Service and high officials in the Park Service and other government agencies were so supportive of the Appalachian Trail. And certainly Arno Cammerer was one of the best friends, if not the best friend among those people, and was instrumental in getting the AT off the ground.
Dave Startzel, the longtime executive director of ATC, said this of Raymond F. Hunt. Ray was not a large man, but he was a giant within the AT management community. Ray was a highly active trail volunteer with the Tennessee Eastman Hiking Club. Club members cite 2 projects where he played a critical role. When the Chestoa Bridge crossing the Nolichucky River south of Irwin, Tennessee, was being replaced with a newer bridge, the initial design was approved without any provision for AT hikers. Ray worked tirelessly to get the design changed to accommodate the trail. When a permit was granted to expand the Putnam mine adjacent to the AT in New Cranberry, North Carolina, Ray led the effort to revoke the approval for the expansion due to the impact it would have on the trail's viewshed. Beyond trail work in Tennessee, Ray was the first editor in 1977 of the annual Appalachian Trail Data Book, a role he continued to perform until his election as ATC's chair. He served a long term on the ATC Board of Managers beginning in 1979 and was especially involved in the publications and land acquisition programs. His 3 terms as chair from 1983 to 1989 were significant ones for building support within congressional appropriations committees for funding to secure against development a buffer of land around the footpath. ATC's partnership with the National Park Service was also formalized during this time, including the 1984 delegation by that agency to ATC of day-to-day responsibility for managing the trail lands. This meant that ATC was given most of the same conservation responsibilities that park staff have at other national park units, which is the way the trail's managed to this day. Mr. Hunt completed a section hike of the whole trail in 1988. He passed away in 2005. We are thrilled that to accept the induction for Ray is another giant of the AT, Bob Peoples. Bob, as you know, many of you know, was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018. Bob's well known as the leader of the hardcore trail crew and is the operator of the King Cora Hostel. Please come forward, Bob, and accept for Ray Hunt.
It's indeed an honor to be asked to receive this award for Ray. Ray was a friend, and he was a trail maintainer. But most of all, he was a doer. That's with an ER on the end. If you miss my pronunciation, don't worry about it. English is my second language. Bostonian's my first. That slide, and I'll come back to that slide in a minute. I hope you keep that up there. Ray was a chemical engineer, graduated from Yale, came from Pennsylvania here, and got involved with trails in the ATs in the early 50s. And spent the rest of his career until he passed away in 2005 with trails. And one other exception I'll come to in a minute. But we forget sometimes as trail maintainers what it took to get the trail to where it is today. He was involved in a 65-mile relocation with Stan Murray, putting their own mountains on the Appalachian Trail. They did it in 3 years, 65 miles. And you that are sitting out there as maintainers know how brutal that is. No wonder we still have a club. There was so much going on there, and Ray was so important in it all because it was land acquisition, and that was always his interest right up until his death. In his latter years, he was trail acquisition, land acquisition for Tennessee, North Carolina, for ATC. And that's where I knew him in that role. But as a trail maintainer, the other thing, when he was chair for ATC, he was very interested in trail publication and public relations and getting the trail known. and he put out and was involved in a lot of the publications that became popular for all of us to learn about the trail. So, and as Jim said, he was sixth chair for ATC. This slide, he was the steward for Roan High Knob Shelter. And Thursday, Joe and Brandon and these 3 logs have to be replaced. The 3 logs on the other side need to be replaced. And that's what we were doing Thursday of this week. And it has to be jacked up and get those out of there. And those that do maintenance, remember where Roan High Knob is. How do you get 16-inch diameter, 17-foot locust logs up there? Brandon over here in the blue and black shirt, he's the one that got them up there with Forest Service. Brandon, would you stand up a sec? Well, I tried it, but I was used to be 6'2", and then the show, it's still going on, and it's still a tradition. But one real quick story: 2003, Ray and a bunch of us. This corner, this shelter was built. It was the Forest Service shelter for the fire warden, and this corner started to sink. So we had to jack it up, and we were changing the cedar shingles at the same time on the shelter. And I had a hiker with me, and all he did was complain about the data book. And finally, I had had enough. And he said, "Don't complain to me, complain to him." So he said, "Why should I complain to him?" I said, "Open to page 2. It's dedicated to him. He typed the first one on his typewriter. No more comment about the data book. So it, but as I say, just, he had so much impact. He's really a name you don't really know that much anymore. And I'm glad the museum in the Hall of Fame saw to look back to him, because he's not popular with the hikers today. He's not a name that's known to the hikers today. But without guys like him, we would not have a trail. So a couple of quick items. One, we've already thanked John, and John's been making these sticks for so long. And what's going to happen to Ray's stick? Tennessee Eastman is going to put it in their trophy case at the recreation building to as a symbol. And the other, Joe Morris, who's now head of our maintenance gang, has something for Larry Luxembourg. And what it is, Joe got a hold of the second edition of the data book, 1981 edition. And Joe, if you'd come up and, Larry, would you come up, please? That's for the museum. So if any of you is aboard, 2 things, and I've got a lot of maintainers that I know sitting out there, help us. And Ray had done something that I wish would happen again. He got all the maintenance clubs together in a conference each year. What do you do best? Learn about what the other clubs do so that you can better what your club does. And I wish we'd go back to that, but Ray started that.
I can't resist bragging on Bob a little bit. When he was inducted in 2018, I called him the Pied Piper of the Appalachian Trail, and I still think that fits, because I have probably met officials from probably 25 or 28 of the 30 Appalachian Trail maintaining clubs, and every one of them says the same thing to me. How in the world do we get younger people involved in maintaining the trail? They like to hike the trail, but it's hard to get them to come back and maintain the trail. Bob is the guy who does that. He with Hardcore is an example we should all follow in getting young people out and getting them invested in the trail, because I'm not speaking for myself, but some of you are not getting any younger, and what's going to happen when we're all gone? Ronald S. Rosen is widely recognized as one of the most effective volunteers in the history of the AT. He began his involvement in the mid-1970s when he became a maintainer with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. In 1981, Ron formed and chaired the Dutchess Appalachian Trail Management Committee. Ron led the effort to move a portion of the AT off the roads in that area and turn it into a true woods trail. Later, this committee's role was expanded to supervise all of the AT in New York, east of the Hudson River. Ron's abilities and management style has fostered the retention of volunteers. Many of these volunteers recruited by Ron have received awards for long and distinguished service. Ron developed one of the first local management plans, which has become a model for other clubs up and down the AT. In addition, he created and distributed a neighbors brochure designed to familiarize people living near the corridor with the National Scenic Trail that is in their backyard. Another huge task Ron immersed himself in was the cleanup of a radioactive spill at Nuclear Lake near the path of the trail. In the early 1970s, a spill of radioactive material there led to a seemingly endless, decade-long stream of meetings with concerned citizens, local leaders, and government officials. With the efforts of Ron and others, the lake was restored, and the AT is now located along its shoreline. This tranquil spot is now one of the highlights of the AT in the area and enjoyed by numerous local residents for hiking and bird watching. Beyond his work on the trail in New York, Ron has served in various volunteer administrative roles within ATC. He has served for decades on the Mid-Atlantic Regional Partnership Committee, including terms as its chair. More recently, Ron served on the committee that developed the AT Vista concept as the successor to the biennial conferences. Ron was a leader in the first successful Vista held in 2023 in Johnson City, Tennessee. Ron has been named an honorary life member of ATC. It is my great honor to welcome my friend Ron Rosen to the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame. Please come up and say a few words, Ron.
Thank you, Jim. I'm definitely honored and humbled to accept this award. Surprised is probably also part of it. Best that I can tell, I guess I started in '76 as a volunteer for the Appalachian Trail, plus or minus a year. I'm not exactly sure at that point, so haven't quite made 50 years yet, but it's been a great time. Somebody asked on the way in today as to what my most memorable part was, and I think getting the Appalachian Trail in Dutchess County off the roads. When I first was working there, there were 30 miles of the AT in Dutchess County. 26 of those miles were roadwalks. And at the present time, I'd say maybe 20 yards of the AT are on roads. So when I first started out as a volunteer, I was a maintainer in Pauling before we acquired the permanent right-of-way for the trail. And most of my maintenance consisted of putting AT blazes on telephone poles. And that's what it was at the beginning. And we had a long run, and as Jim mentioned, I've been part of a team which has done a great job. Many of those people are here today. Walt and Jane Daniels, for example, have been working with this almost since that early beginning. And we had a reality of a lot of people who were long-term people. One of them just died last year, Jane Geisler, who was 99 years old when she died, but was working as a volunteer for the AT for many of those years. So on behalf of all of them, I certainly appreciate your recognition for the AT Hall of Fame. Thanks a lot.
So this is the 2024 class of the AT Hall of Fame. We'd like for all of the honorees and representatives of the class to please come forward. Could you all come forward and be honored one final time?
One quick comment. Those, we had a special place on the trail in our section, and that was over Mountain Shelter, the barn. And unfortunately, we had to take that down in November of last year because it was leaning 17 degrees into the valley. So if you went upstairs, you would end up much farther down the valley. So what we did, throwing out the pieces of wood, we cut up a bunch of pieces of wood, and Joe Morris, that gave Larry the book, he made up a branding iron, and we branded pieces of the barn. We have those in a bag over there if anybody would like one. There's no cost or anything else, it's just a memory of the barn. Okay, thanks.
Let's make sure we keep at least one for the museum, though. That's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm going to turn it over to Brooke again.
Thanks, Jim. I just have a few more thoughts. But I want to mention the shirt that Jim held up earlier. Don't rush off right now and purchase that online because it's not there yet. But it should be on our store by next week. And we're actually, my team is in Philadelphia. I'll be heading there tomorrow. We're at the Exponential Music Festival, which if any of you listen to WXPN, it's a big public television or public radio network with translators in Baltimore and all over the place. And we're hopeful that being part of this and being advertised on XPN will do the trails movement some real good justice and get word out about PA trails. And we're doing it in part to promote the Keystone Hiking and Outdoor Weekend, which I'm shamelessly promoting with a flyer in the back there. But that's coming up the end of October in the lower Susquehanna Valley, and it's called the Susquehanna River Conservation Landscape, or the Susquehanna Riverlands. And there's all kinds of great trails down there with the Mason-Dixon and the Conestoga, as well as bike paths and just a lot of nice protected lands. So anyway, yeah, maybe some of you will be interested in that event. But I just thought, well, first of all, what a really wonderful ceremony. Thank you, Jim. And thanks for all of you for being part of this today. And congratulations again to the inductees. I guess in closing, thought we could take a moment to ponder the moment. And what I mean by that is, you know, in the noise, especially during election season, but this, you know, chaotic world that is so rife with discord, trails, and especially the Appalachian Trail, represent hope, unity, continuity, They're respites. They're places to rise above and contemplate the beauty and good that still reverberates across miles and generations. The trails are benevolent hosts, and their generosity is made manifest in the lives of those who pause to revel in their grandeur and reciprocate their gifts. So, thank you again for being part of this day. And until we meet again, happy trails.